Hello, allemaal. That is everyone in Dutch. Welcome to our very first A Couple of Expats podcast. I am Gabriella and this is John, and we are so excited to bring you our podcast channel. This is the first round of podcasts, and we are newbies at this. So bear with us. It might be a little bit of a rocky road, but we are super excited to be here. We are a couple of expats. We are both expats and a couple. We're originally from the US, now living in Amsterdam. And we decided to put this podcast together to take you into our lives a bit and show you what it's like living as an expat in Amsterdam. So, to start it off, we'll start with just some simple intros of who we are, what we do, how we got here, and all the fun jazz. So, John, do you want to be the one to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm John. Hello. I'm originally from Massachusetts and moved over here in 2021 for a work assignment and have been here since. Prior to 2021 and prior to the pandemic, I actually had a work assignment over here for about 5 months. So I was already acclimated with the city of Amsterdam a bit. So yeah, coming back or getting an offer to come back was great. I already kind of had a taste of the city, and loved it. So yeah, and ever since, it's been about almost 2.5 years since I've moved over here, and yeah, that's pretty much
Very
it.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my story is a little bit different. I moved to London when John moved here. So in September, August 2021, for work. So we're actually doing long distance for a hot second. But surprisingly enough, Amsterdam and London are really, really close together. It's just a quick flight or 4-hour train ride. You can argue that that's quick. So yeah, I started off in London. Was working at a dream job there. It was a really cool opportunity. I loved every bit of it. So I started off my journey as an expat in London and then moved over here in September of 2023. So I've only been here for about 6 months, but I have about 2.5 years experience as an expat. I've gone through the process of getting visas in both countries, which is definitely an experience, and we can't wait to share all those little bits with y'all. And now I am just working in retail here, so nothing too exciting. I'm actually a trained physiotherapist, or for our American followers, physical therapist. Um, but have not gotten my license here due to the fact that I don't speak Dutch. So maybe one day, but right now, just working in retail. So from here, we're just going to talk to you guys what we hope to bring to this podcast. We definitely rely on our audience. We've created an questionnaire so you guys can submit questions. We got an Instagram account. We've done all the bits and pieces. I've pulled my creative part out, where John's pulled all of his technology stuff out, even got his legit microphone. So we're ready to go. We're ready to make this big. We'll see how it turns out. But with all of our podcasts, we hope to bring everything from visa questions to just culture to finding housing, finding work, literally any bits and bobs you can think of restarting and moving your entire life, leaving everything and bringing it to a new country. Yeah, what about you, John?
Yeah, I think it would be really good to get some questions on some of the living differences within the US and the Netherlands. And I think also we'll probably touch on this as we go through the podcast about talking about what's the main, I guess, differences through Europe in general. I think
Yeah.
skiing is a very big one for me because I ski a lot, but skiing is definitely different in Europe than it is in the US. So yeah, we hopefully we can designate a portion of an episode to just skiing in Europe, which
Yeah.
I think would be great.
John's definitely an avid skier. I guess we could go on and just kind of say some of our hobbies and kind of what we like to do and how that like kind of ties into with everything we've found in in Europe. So like John said, skis and it's into cars. He found a pretty cool car museum this
I
past
did.
weekend too.
It's very nice. The Loman Museum in The Hague was really really cool. So yeah, it was very interesting to see. Um, yeah, very very cool.
Yeah, it worked out for him. We try to get away for weekends or for like day trips on the weekends around the Netherlands. There's definitely some cool places to see. So this weekend was The Hague for a half marathon for myself and for John, a little exploration,
Yep.
which was really fun. I didn't love the start time of the race. It was a 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. or 1400 start time for a half marathon, which was really difficult. It's really tough. Not a fan of that. Don't recommend it. But I have noticed I'm a big runner. I'm really into fitness, pretty much anything fitness.
Mhm.
I do. I found a CrossFit gym here, started a whole community with that, and it's been really fun. We're doing the CrossFit Open right now, and it's been fun to just jump in and see how the Dutch do it. Um, it's very different, a lot of techno music, but we're having a good time
Very nice.
for sure. So that's kind of, I guess, my interest. Anything to do with running and fitness and CrossFit, pretty much anything intense in that sense. And then I think from a similarity point, we both just love food. So food's always going to bring us together
Yeah.
without question. We're pretty much down to try almost anything. Not going to say everything because some things are really different. While I keep open mind to it, it's just really different.
Mhm.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll just touch on all of that for you guys, and hopefully we have similar interests so you guys could chime in and be a part of our podcast with us. So, should we dig into just a little bit about our story as well?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good call.
Okay. So, we'll give you guys a background of how we've met. We've been together for a really long time. Um, Prior to moving to Amsterdam, we both met in the We met in the U.S. So yeah, go on, John. Let's hear your
Yeah.
input on our how we met.
Yeah, so we met back in Boston in 2014 now. So it'll be 10 years in October. Um, we had our first date at the Beehive in the South End, which is a great restaurant with great live music and great food and entertainment. It was really cool. And then from there, we had kind of just continued talking. We found that, we often would talk about sports. At the time, I was working for an athletic company, so it was something that we had as a common interest. And then we've kind of continued to stay with each other since then, really kind of moving throughout Boston and then kind of through Texas from the pandemic. She had moved back to Texas where her family is from. And then had a short stint in Atlanta. And then
Very
you,
short.
yeah, very short.
A
And then
month.
we had kind of started making the transition over here. So, but yeah, it was, yeah, it's been fun. So,
Yeah, that's fun. I have to say, Amsterdam. Well, I love Boston. I'm originally from Texas, not from Massachusetts. So I went to school in Boston and was there for 10 years. It was really cool, but I have to say, Amsterdam's probably been my most favorite place I've lived. Might be just because it's so different and foreign and cool, but it's beautiful here.
mm,
Um, Not too many negative things to say. Maybe despite the weather, for those that don't know or have never been to Amsterdam, the winter months are very dark and gloomy. So, um,
yeah. It's definitely very wet and cold. I think consistently it's like 35 to 40 degrees with like a mist and just wetness. So it's definitely something that's, it can get pretty dark. And I think also like in the winter, it's like sun starts to go down at like 4 and then only comes back up around like 8:45, 9 o'clock. So it's definitely
Some dark days.
some pretty dark days during the winter time. But the good thing is that most of the time when you're getting wet rain here and it's kind of gross, you're getting snow in the Alps, which is great. So
Yeah, it's great when you're in the Alps, but when you're stuck in Amsterdam,
yeah,
it sucks for a second.
that's right. Yeah. So this week we're working on starting our first segment of the podcast, which is our Dutch snack of the week. So this week we've tried this. It's not even really a snack. Actually, it's like a kid's breakfast item, which is very interesting.
No, adults eat it too. We're
Well,
actually going to back up. We had some technical difficulties recording our first episode, so this is actually a re-record. So we're bringing you the Dutch snack of the week, which we plan to do every single podcast. Like I said, we love food. That's probably the one thing that we absolutely share to like the extreme. So we're gonna go to the grocery store, go out in town, try something we've never tried before. That's a Dutch specific food or somewhere we've traveled to recently. Like if we're in France, we might grab something like snack in the grocery store and then try it live for you guys for the first time. So you can go ahead and explain our first Dutch snack of the week.
yeah. And I think also what's interesting about some of these sweeter types of snacks or foods, it's often a breakfast food. So, for instance, like something that we would have for dessert, like apple pie, they would have that for breakfast here. So, similar to that is we have
Hogos.
hagelslag, which is essentially sprinkles. And so they'll take toast, they'll put some butter on it.
Not toast, just red bread. So like white bread.
Yeah, or they can do
No,
white bread
no
or
toast.
toast.
Just white bread. I've researched it. I promise. Because
Okay.
the white bread's a little fluffier consistency. No toast, just white bread. Continue. Proceed.
Okay. So then they put butter on it and then they sprinkle on the chocolate sprinkles, or they even have like some sort of, sometimes they have like shavings of chocolate, but it is a dish that they typically have in the morning time. So, and it's actually pretty tasty if you get some of the better quality sprinkles or hagelslag. Yeah, it's a really interesting dish. I think it's super tasty. I tried it for the first time probably a couple of weeks ago now, and it was very tasty. So, yeah, one of those things where you'd be surprised having it in the morning, or because it just seems like a very different thing to have for breakfast, but it is very tasty.
Which is kind of crazy if you think of it, because it's like a sweet delicacy like that you'd have for breakfast. But you think growing up as kids in the US, we ate these like sugar loaded cereals, which is probably just like 1,000 times worse for you than these sprinkles. But they're actually not sprinkles. They're like branded. It's called Brute, DE and then RUIJTER. Don't know how to
I think
pronounce
that's
it.
the router or
The
the
router.
router.
So that's the brand. I think that's the company that founded them. I think it was in the late 1800s, or I don't remember the facts. I did look it up. I tried to do my research. Clearly, not enough because it didn't stick. But what I did find interesting is that in comparison to the American sprinkles, these sprinkles or hagelslag have to be like 32% cacao.
Yeah.
So there's actually a lot of chocolate in them. And when you open up the box, like you just immediately are just like hit with like really good smelling chocolate. Like not, no offense to everyone, but not like the Hershey's stuff. That stuff's not so great compared to like the real chocolate. But yeah, we tried it together and I was super surprised. I actually loved it. And then a few days ago, we loaded up on some Ben and Jerry's here because there was a big sale. So obviously, you buy as many pints as possible, and I put some on my ice cream, and it was delicious. Like I loved it. I'm gonna have to do that more often because now we have this whole box of sprinkles. Might as well put it to use.
Yep.
So we're still working on the flow of things. Clearly, there's some awkward pauses. We're trying to make it very conversational. We're working on the eye contact thing, but it's kind of hard with the podcast because you have to like look at the screen. Like maybe we should make a little bit more eye contact or something.
Okay. Do you have any other Dutch snacks that you're very interested in?
Oh yeah, there's many, but I have them all written down on paper, and I can't share them with you until we hit future episodes.
Okay.
So because if I give them all away now, there'll be no material left for us going forward. So, yeah, there'll be plenty to come. But is there any Dutch snacks you eat on consistent basis? Like, what's your go-to? Have you found anything you like? Kibling?
Kibbeling is like fried fish and fried like mustard, mussels and squid and stuff like that. I don't eat that very often. Um,
I like
yeah,
markets though.
yeah.
That's a
Street
pretty
markets they have
consistent.
that, and it's pretty consistent there. So, um, yeah, it's it's pretty tasty. It's just one of those things where it's like probably don't want to have it too all that often. so, um, so yeah. But yeah, I think from a Dutch snack perspective, I think the thing that I eat probably the most here is probably cheese. I would say they have a lot of like
Gosh.
cheese cubes that are aged in different ways and different types of cheese. So um, yeah, it's super tasty and very yeah, like easily accessible, very cheap, and it's a really good snack. So that's what I typically will have. It's like a normal Dutch like snack, I guess you could say.
Yeah, cheese is a pretty good consistent one. I feel like, especially compared to the U.S., there's not as many like snacky foods. It's like actual real food. People don't tend to snack like they do in the U.S.,
Yeah.
which I guess is really good and healthy. You're eating whole foods and not just tons of processed
Mm-hmm.
crap, for lack of better words.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on this topic of Dutch stuff, anyway, our next segment that we want to bring is a Dutch word or phrase of the week. So we'll each give you guys one. Maybe you'll be fluent in Dutch by the end of this podcast. Who knows? I mean, we're not, but maybe you guys learn faster than us. But we'll bring our favorite word of the week. So, like, maybe we had an encounter with someone, something went well, we used Dutch correctly. We'll share that with you guys. So, you want to go ahead and go first with either give me a phrase or a word or you know what? Let's actually back this up for a second. And how's it been for you trying to learn and speak Dutch so far in the Netherlands
I
with
think it's
2.5 years of
yeah.
experience?
I think it's my first lessons were like within like the first like couple of months I was here. And they were okay. Unfortunately, it was still like a period of lockdown within the Netherlands, so I had to do it via Zoom. And one of my instructors was actually a teacher by like profession, so she was really good. The other one, it was just kind of like a side job, not so great. And I also thought they did a very. It was also very like they had a how do I say it? Like they didn't really try to translate for you, and so it was difficult for me to learn. Like if I didn't know the equivalent in English first, and they wouldn't really break Dutch to speak in English and say, "Hey, it's actually this." So it was like you kind of had to figure it out and Google search it like on the fly. Um, so yeah, that one was a bit of a challenge. Um, but for the most part, it was like a good experience learning with other people from other nationalities that were trying to get accustomed to the language. I also thought though that like at the end of it, it got the good basics of what you need to kind of get around if you really needed to. Thing is that in the Netherlands, most of the time, the people
Switch to
like
English.
speak to like switch to English pretty quickly. So they'll even like if they'll probably start speaking to you in English if you're in like a major restaurant or market or something like that. Most of the younger folks here will speak English to you. So, yeah.
Most, I like all. Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience within my first few months here. I did an in-person course, so slightly different from what you did. But there was like 15 of us, and none of us were from the same place. We were all from different places, which just was really cool and exciting. I think that's one cool thing about Amsterdam is I think there's like over 75 different nationalities. That number might have changed now of people that live here. So it's literally just like a city of expats, which I think the government has caught on to and is getting frustrated with. But they're still letting us in as of now. And my Dutch experience, you learned all the basics. I didn't do that well. I tried my best. I gave my final presentation on describing Beyonce and her family, and I was actually really proud of that. And my teacher gave me a horrible grade for it, and I was really upset. My teacher was not that good. But everyone in the class was really cool, and we helped each other out. I can introduce myself now in Dutch and pretty much tell you where I'm from, and then I can name some fruits and vegetables. But um, beyond that, I can't really say I speak Dutch. I would love to, and I try, and you pick up words over time. Um, but my Dutch is nowhere near of a fluent level. But go ahead and tell us, what is your Dutch word or phrase of the week or of your time here, since you've been here for 2.5 years anyway? What do you use the most?
Probably
English.
they'll probably Dunkyville, which is thank you. But I also think it's just very interesting how people say bye here on like telephones. They always like so
Tootsies.
goodbye is tootsies, but then they always will like do like some weird like chime when they say like bye. They'll be like doo doo or like something like that, or like they'll just make some like very um, positive chime to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's very
Yeah,
interesting
they could be
actually.
having like a dead serious
Yeah,
conversation, and then they're just like tootsies.
yeah, yeah.
And it's hilarious, but I think that's just part of the culture for sure. Um, I'll give you my favorite phrase, or the one I just most commonly use. I've done a lot of like admin and I've been to like a few doctor's appointments lately. Everything's all good, but just like going through just all checking all my boxes. And Spricket Engels is speak English. So
Yeah.
pretty much anytime you're having to deal with anyone on the phone, they obviously answer in Dutch. I have no idea what they say, but my initial response is Spreek Engels. Uh,
Spreek angles.
Spreek je Engels.
Yeah.
Yes, you learned something today. You can now be my Dutch teacher since the first one didn't work out too well.
I think Dutch, my teacher the first time had said it was almost kind of like the Yoda language. Like for Spreek angles is like speak you English.
Yeah.
So something like that, or like
Oh,
day
Spreek
was
je Engels. Like, I got it. I was just saying speak English and not speak you English. I was like
yeah,
not even adding any
yeah, yeah. So
words in there.
um, so yeah. Anyway, so it was one of those things where it was uh, super interesting that once you kind of got that insight and you looked at sentence formation, it was like how it was kind of like put together was very interesting to see. But yeah, it's still a very difficult language. I find it to like speak because there's like kind of like very different sounds that are different from the English language. Whereas like in German or something, right? Like it's very exact and like very precise, like vowels and sounds and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's just a little bit different and harder to learn, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do see a crossover of some English words that are like Dutch words, but obviously spelled differently and pronounced differently, but still kind of similarly. So sometimes like you're like, I got this. I think I got this. I know what I'm talking about just because there's that crossover with English. And then you realize pretty quickly, oh no, you weren't anywhere close to it. Um, but yeah, Dutch is just a difficult language that I don't know if I have the intention of going all in for. I wanted to do that initially, but I've just found it very difficult
Mm-hmm.
um, since I've been here. And everyone speaks English, which is really convenient, but I have that expat guilt, is what I call it, of going to somewhere new and not even trying to speak the language. I hate it. I don't think it bothers them at all. And I think they're sometimes excited to show that they can speak English so well,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they are one of the top countries in the world that are not an English speaking country that have the best proficiency in English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're excited to show off their skills. And then me, especially with me being a native English speaker, which almost ironically puts a lot more pressure on me. I obviously am a native English speaker, but I never really like process that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So if English is not someone's first language, I never considered like maybe the anxiety of word pronunciation and sentence formation that they might have talking to me. But I noticed that at work, where I work with a team of 30 people, and we're pretty much all of different nationalities. And that was kind of eye opening and made me take a step back. And a lot of times I think but they speak English more properly than I do, which I think is really funny.
Yeah, I think they speak English like super well. They start from a very young age, so yeah, it's almost like second nature at that point for them. I mean, I work with a lot of Dutch people, and the majority of them speak English like very, very fluently, very clearly, and can articulate and present very well. So, something that I think in the U.S. we are just definitely so far behind. Like learning other languages is, yeah, you get like your couple of semesters in high school or something, and if you want to, you can take even further, but even then, like it kind of just fades away, right? I think for me, the thing that's really interesting is like, you know, think of me going into a restaurant or something and you're speaking in English. Like, imagine being in the US and you're speaking Dutch, right? That's like you're going to get served, and the person's just going to look at you like completely crazy. It's just super, super interesting. I think it's getting a little bit different, like in the South or in California, where things are in Spanish a little bit more. And
Yeah.
actually, on some of the commercials I see now on TV, some of them are actually in Spanish for the US, particularly on like the Samsung platform of the free TV. But yeah, I always think about that of like, I come in here and I'm speaking not native language to the area. Like, what would that look like if we were in the US, like in Boston or something?
Yeah, I'll never forget one time I was at the post office in Boston, and there was this little old lady who didn't speak any English. She was just speaking Spanish, and the worker there didn't speak Spanish. And so she yelled at the lady in English, "Why, if you're going to come to this country, learn to speak English." And that has stuck with me forever. And I think of that little moment. Obviously, it was just a disgruntled person. I would never treat anybody like that, even in America. But that has just stuck with me, and it makes me feel a little embarrassed to be an American or to have been present in that room, um, but then translates over to what I'm experiencing now of not being able to speak the native language in a country which I more or less immigrated to.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, so that's just a little recap, a little summary of what you guys will see in the podcast to come. We hope it's really fun and exciting for you guys. and we can take you on a journey of our experience and travels through Europe. Um, like we said, we created an Instagram page. It is a couple of expats underscore podcasts. So definitely make sure to follow us on Instagram. You can find all the links to um, submitting questions, to watching the full-on videos on YouTube, and a bit more. That's probably the best place to view us. Make sure you give us likes there, you share it with your friends, and then go ahead and also like our YouTube page. We'd really appreciate any recognition we can get, and any shares as well.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add to that? Any closing remarks?
This is just a dry run, I think, for our first episode. So we'll get more technically advanced and get a better camera and talk through different topics and stuff like that. But no, I think for now, let's keep it as is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and make sure to give us feedback if we're boring and dry. Let us know, and we will lighten it up for you guys. We appreciate you listening, and we can't wait for many more episodes to come. Nice job, John. We did
Thank
it.
you. See ya.